Hey everyone, welcome back to More Flesh and Bad, and today we're going to be doing a set review. So this first part of the set review, we're going to be covering the Draconic and the Warrior and Ninja cards. And the second part of the set review, which will probably be at a later date, we'll talk about all the Assassin cards and as well as the two Chaos cards, which is a little bit disappointing.
All two of them.
All two of them. But yeah, for this video, we're going to be focused more on Draconic stuff, which includes like Syndra's kit as well as Fang's kit. We're not going to be talking about the equipment or the hero abilities, but we're just going to give a quick rundown of each individual card. So Tegan, do you want to try to explain what the timer is doing there?
Yeah, so in an effort to make the video not super long, we've instituted a timer, which is up there.
Yep.
We're going to give ourselves about a minute, give or take, to
talk through
each card.
Yeah.
Give or take, I mean, if it's like, a really like impactful card, we might expound on it a little bit longer than a minute, but yeah, we're doing it quickly.
Yep, for sure. So we don't want to take up too much of the time. We just kind of want to give our initial thoughts on cards, and then we can look back at it and laugh ourselves later when we miss something really obvious. All right, so timer started. Let's talk about the first Majestic. Blood Runs Deep is a two attack, 3 block card that's go again, and then it also has kind of like a weird hurl effect. I've been liking this card a lot. I think there are some Syndra players who are not as big a fan of this card just because like it's kind of bad with flick knives because you're like losing like a dagger fling. But I think this card has been quite solid, and it's kind of a very flexible card for enabling like mask momentum hits.
Has the 2 cost ever really been a hindrance to you? Because I know it gets discounted for Draconic Chainlinks, or is it like pretty much whenever you're playing it, it's gonna cost nothing?
This is like at minimum like a 0 for 3 go again. That's Draconic, and then also gives you like some evasion and like a weird on it. So I really like this card a lot. All right, so let's move on to Ignite. Ignite is a 2. It's kind of a similar stat line to Blood Runs Deep, where it's 2 attack, go again, but it has 2 block. And it also kind of gives you a resource, which is kind of interesting. So when it attacks, your next Draconic card is discounted. I think this card's quite solid. I don't know if this is going to make a lot of like the later builds, but I've been kind of enjoying this card so far. Syndra's seems to want to run a lot of 1 costs, and this card kind of enables a lot of those good 1 costs.
I think it's also pretty good in Fi. It's got like it's pretty agnostic in terms of like it's not about throwing daggers. And also it gets buffed by Shuko. So if you're a Fi player, I think this is like a pretty solid include as well.
Yep. I also really like that this also doesn't just discount attacks, it also discounts abilities of attacks, which makes like swinging daggers a little bit easier too, which is really interesting. Oh yeah, also I kind of moved the timer just because the circle thing was messing with me a little bit, so I wanted to fully show the little circle go around the timer. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and start the next card.
Yeah, let's talk about Demonstrate Devotion. If you control 2 or more Draconic Chain Links, this gets go again, and when this attacks a hero, create a fealty token. I have seen you play a few games as Syndra using this. How has it been treating you?
I really like that this is not an on hit, so it's just an attack trigger, and it's really easy to control 2 Draconic Chain Links. It also counts itself, so if you only control 1 Draconic Chain Link and then this is your second one, it also triggers. Creating fealties for very low opportunity cost is really good. The only downside of this card is that it's 2 block, but it's a 1 for 4 2 block that's also Draconic and gives you a fealty for free without like having to hit or anything. I think this card is very solid, and I think I really like it a lot.
Has the 1 cost ever been a hindrance to you?
I think the 1 cost actually fits the curve of the deck quite well because I think you want to run some blues and like at least some amount of blues in Syndra. Whether or not how many you run is kind of a question, but I've been liking this card a lot in terms of just the stat line. I think it's really good.
Display Loyalty. If you control 2 or more Draconic Chain Links, this gets go again, and when this attacks a hero, create a fealty token.
Yeah, so this is very similar stat line to the Demonstrate Devotion. You're basically just losing 1 attack for 1 cost, basically. So you're getting a 0 for 3 go again instead of a 1 for 4 go again. But again, I think that this card is very good for a similar reason, in that you're just getting fealty without having to hit or mark or do anything. So I think it's very low opportunity cost and very high upside.
Do you play many of the mark cards in your Syndra list at the moment?
I think I'm currently on like 3 of them, but the problem with mark, so like getting a fealty is better than mark for Syndra, just because like in order to get a fealty out of like a on hit mark card, you need to hit again after you hit the mark, so it's a little bit less consistent in terms of like when you get the fealty much later than like instantaneously with this card, which is why I kind of like it a lot.
Makes sense.
And it's also base Draconic, which is very, very good. All right, so we have Wrath of Retribution, which is a legendary Cinder card. It gets discounted for each Draconic Chain Link, and then it gives your daggers +1 and costs less to activate. And it comes in for 3, go again, and is the 3 block. This card's very, very insane. Like, even at its floor, this card's like, I think people have described it as like a 2-card 10 or something. Just a very, very solid card. Very good power card in Syndra. I almost don't like cards like this just because, like, in Syndra Mirrors, like, maybe this is like a deciding factor, but again, this card's like just very, very strong. But yeah, very good stat line, very good attack, just very good.
How's it a 2-card 10?
So you can kind of do like dagger dagger, or like you can do this into like dagger dagger and then like fling daggers. I forget exactly what the sequence is that makes it a 2-card 10, but I've heard that that's like the floor of the card, and then I think it gets a lot better kind of as like you get more like if you keep like a
Oh,
5
because you can recur daggers.
yeah,
too,
because you can
that
recur
makes
daggers
sense.
with it too, right? So this card's very, very solid. All right, let's talk about Blood Drop. So Blood Drop is a 1-for-2 go again that also gets discounted for each Draconic Chain Link. I've heard some talk about this in 5 more so than anything, just because like you get a 0-for-2 go again 3 block. That's like pretty good. A lot better than a lot of 5's other cards, which kind of block 2. I don't think this is actually all that good in Syndra, just because I feel like we have better cards. But it's like a okay to slightly below rate stat line.
It seems like a limited card for me.
Yeah.
Like a thing that you like. It's definitely solid, I think, in draft or sealed, but I don't know how much this makes the cut in classic constructed.
Yeah, but I think the card's like fine-ish. I just don't think it's anything to write home about necessarily. All right, Bloodline is basically the same card as the last one, but +1 attack, +1 cost. This card is, I think, a little bit better just because, like, I think this, like, you can pretty often get 2 Draconic Chain Links, so the +1 benefit, like, I think matters a little bit more. Like, the cost doesn't matter as much with this card because you get the discount, right? So I think the stat line's a little bit better. And then being a 3 blocks also kind of, so it's like a 0-for-3 go again a lot of the time. So I think this card's like pretty okay. Not like a CC All Star though or anything.
In some ways, I think it's probably worse in 5 because it doesn't get Shuka buff.
Yeah,
Although you can pummel it.
true.
So
You can pummel
yeah,
Bloodline.
you
That
can
is an
pummel
option.
Bloodline. Pummel 5.
Yeah, pummel fly. But yeah, this card's okay. Nothing crazy. All right, next we have Burning Blade Dance. So this is basically a 0-for-3 go again, and then when it hits a hero, you can basically fling a dagger at them, right? This card's okay so I think this card's actually pretty good in like limited. In CC though, it gets a little bit weirder just because like it being a hit trigger makes it very kind of like a lot worse than like an unconditional hurl, right? And like so the breakpoints on this card also aren't very good. Like just coming in for 3 attack is a lot worse than coming in for 4 attack. So the stat line on this card is like okay, but it's nothing super crazy to me. All right, so Spinner Scene Devotion is a reprint, so we're not going to talk about it, but okay card.
Yeah, it's fine.
All right, same thing about this card. Another reprint from Uprising. Decent card. Draconic Ninja. Go good. Sure. Pretty good. All right, next we have Hunter on their heels, which is a kind of similar stat line to the Fealty one. But the problem with this card is that it's an on hit as opposed to a attack trigger. So 0-for-3, go again, that causes a mark when on hit. I don't like the stat line of this card. I don't think it's very good. But probably okay in limited. And the mark I think is a lot worse in Syndra.
Yeah, I mean, at least like the Gogan, like is kind of trivial to like get going, but I don't think it's a CC card by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, having an on-hit trigger on a 0-for-3 go again is nothing super crazy to me. All right, next up we have Lava Vein Loyalty, which is pretty good reprint. 0-for-3, 3 block. Pretty solid, but again, nothing crazy for CC. I've actually been playing the blue one of this just because it's a blue Draconic 3 block. But again, just a reprint, so nothing super crazy, but pretty good limited, I think.
Okay, Mark with Magma. If you control 2 more Draconic Chain Links, it gets Gogan and on hit mark 'em. You've been playing with this a little bit. What do you think?
So I've been thinking about this as like a 2 or 3 of in my Syndra CC deck, just because I think having the additional fealty stuff is good enough to maybe justify this. This is basically a 1-for-4 conditional go again with a mark on hit, which is really, really solid. I think this is a better stat line than Hot on their heels, just because the 4 attack is a lot more impactful than 3 attack generally. And the on hit of mark means that you're getting like a delayed fealty, but it's still like a 3 block in your deck, so it's like a one for 4 3 block that like has Gogan 95% of the time. So I think it's actually a lot more solid than it looks. And yeah, probably pretty solid and limited as well.
All right, and then we have Ronin Renegade, which is another reprint from Uprising. It's fine. It's a 0 for 3 go again.
All right, so next we have Art of the Dragon Blood. So this is not a Draconic card; it's a Ninja card. But when it becomes Draconic, it gets go again, and then the next 3 Dragon cards or Draconic cards you play this turn cost red less to play. This card is very, very good. If you have any amount of like fealty generation in your CC Cinder deck, this is just like a 0 for 4 go again a lot of the time, and then it can also give you like 2 to. I've had this give me as many as 3 resources with the amount of like 1 cost on the deck. So this card has been a very big overperformer for me. Just very, very solid stat line, just to being a 0 for 4 3 block. And it's a good fealty outlet that kind of lets you kind of do some crazy turns. Like this card a lot.
Have you ever found it awkward to like make it Draconic, or have you had to like wait for like a fealty or like a lot or no lot what is it, Brand with Cinderclaw to come around for this to work, or is it like you have it, you can kind of make it Draconic?
So if you don't have the fealty, you can at least play this as a 0 for 4 chain ender. But if you do have fealty, you can give it go again and basically turn into a Blaze Headlong with upside, which is really good. All right, next we have Devotion Never Dies, which is a 1 for 4 ninja attack action with go again, with 2 block and no other relevant text. Just kidding. All right, it does technically have relevant text, but the problem is that this card I feel like almost never hit. I guess it does have like a pretty threatening on hit, but I don't think this card's as good as it seems. It just is. It feels like kind of like magical Christmas land that you actually get to hit with this card, and I think there are probably better cards to put in your Cinder deck.
It's like Eternal or for Inferno, like the Wizard card, which
Yeah.
is also
Not amazing.
yeah, not amazing and like hard to get going. At least it's a breakpoint.
It is a break point, but I think that there are better things to be playing in Syndra. Like I think that trying to get your opponent to miss block or in such a way where this hits and you get the value out of it, I think is maybe not worth it. All right, next we have Prowess of Agility, which is a kind of aura for Ninja. So the problem with this card is that you have to play it as like a chain ender, but it is a 0 for 3 3 block, or sorry, it's a 0 draw card 3 block. But the card draw is very delayed, so you have to kind of like do a bunch of weird jumping through hoops to kind of get the card draw out of this. It's kind of like maybe decent if you're going first and you can like set it up as Syndra or something, but like I don't think there's a ton of room in Syndra decks for this card. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's better than it looks to me, but I'm not initially impressed by this card.
It's kind of like Worst Truce to me.
Yeah, it's like Truce, but you have to do a bunch of things instead of forcing your opponent to like attack into it or whatever, right? So I don't know how big a fan. Maybe this card will surprise me in the coming set, but I'm not super crazy about it right now. All right. Next we have Art of the Dragon Claw, which is kind of like Draconic CNC. So you have to make this Draconic in order to get the on hit effect, which is really, really good. And I think that this kind of card is kind of similar to another Rupture card. I forget exactly what it's called.
Breaking Point.
Breaking Point, yes. But Breaking Point is base Draconic by itself, and it's very easy to hit the Rupture on that. So I don't know if this card's actually as good as that card. I feel like I'd almost rather run that card, but this card's like pretty good and limited, I think.
Yeah, it's a 1 for 5. Relevant on hit. Blocks 3 too, which is good.
Yeah, and it's a decent fealty outlet. I think that there's another card in the cycle that I think is a little bit stronger than this card, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Is this the card that's a little bit stronger?
Yeah, this is the card that's a little bit stronger than the other one. So Art of Dragon Fire, this is a 1 for 5 3 block, and if you make it Draconic, you can deal 2 damage to any target. This card's very solid as a 1 for 7. It's good fealty outlet, I think. My only question is, I guess, how many of these would you run in your Cinder deck if you could? Currently, I cut this just because of like Talishar bugs, but I might kind of bring it back in at some point to kind of retest it at some point. But yeah, I like this card a lot.
Do you think it gets awkward as a more than 2 of?
Maybe. I think it depends how strong this card is. Like, obviously, a 1 for 7 is really good, but you do have to kind of like set up the fealty to get to that point, or like have like Brain with Cinderclaw or something. I think this card is quite solid though. All right, next we have Art of the Dragon Scale. So when this attacks, if it's Draconic, it's when this hits a hero, put a -1 counter on it, or -1 counter on equipment they control. Then if it has 0, break it. This card's okay, but I think that it being an on hit is a lot worse than the other. Or it's a lot worse than Art of the Dragon Fire or whatever it was called. Dealing 2 damage unconditionally is really good. This being an on hit makes it a little bit less good, but I think it's still like an okay card. I guess the question is, are there better cards we can run? I think there probably are.
I guess like another question is, does it matter if you're destroying their equipment in a deck like Syndra?
Yeah,
Um,
where you're just trying to go fast. Like
yeah,
I don't know if it does
like
really.
the games I've seen you play Syndra, it's like your opponent's losing their equipment just because they're having to block with it,
Right.
because you're going so wide. So I
So
don't
yeah,
know.
I don't know. Not initially impressed by this card, but maybe it sees play. Uh,
Dragon Power.
yeah. So this card's pretty okay. So this is also kind of like a 1 for 7 stat line at red. Pretty similar to our Dragon Fire, but the fire is kind of more evasive because you just deal 2. It's not even arcane damage; it's just 2 damage, right?
Mhm.
Which makes it, I think, a little bit better. And then I think this card's like pretty okay and limited. I don't really see why this card would be better than the other one, but they're all. It does also kind of come in different colors, so it comes in yellow and blue. So maybe like the blue seems play as like a 3 block. I think the card's like very decent style line.
It seems like a Key Unleashed type of card.
Yeah, it kind of
That's
is like
like
a.
what it reminds me of.
Yeah, it's very similar to Key Unleashed, I think. Kind of just a draconic outlet for your fealties and stuff if you need it.
Okay, we got Silver Talons, which is when it attacks a hero, if it is draconic, you may have target dagger you control deal 1 damage to them. If damage is dealt this way, daggers hit, destroy the dagger. So I've seen you play this in blue in your Syndra deck. What do you think about it?
I feel like the opportunity cost of this card is quite low at blue because you just have like a blue 3 block in your deck, and then it's a really good fealty outlet in the late game that basically lets you get a hurl that you don't have to pay for. And hurl effects I think are very strong in Syndra because if you're running like flick knives and CC Syndra, what you can do is you can flick a dagger, and then you need to have another way to flick a dagger in order to get both daggers back at the same time. So that's kind of like the core sequencing issue with Syndra, and I think this card fixes a lot of those issues. I'm not a huge fan of this at red though, just because I think that maybe at red you're playing like too much of this effect, but I think at blue it's like very low opportunity cost.
Is it kind of just like the lack of go again rather makes it weird at red?
Yeah, I think so. That's kind of how it's felt initially.
All right, so we got Fire Tenant, strike first. When it attacks, your next Draconic attack, this Comet Chain gets +1, and it's got go again. To me, this looks a lot like a card that you would play in limited.
Yeah, it's kind of a limited card, but I think that like this card actually does have like an okay stat line, like 0 for 4. Go again's pretty okay. The only thing against this card is that it's not Draconic itself. So it makes like chain link synergies kind of weird. Like Draconic chain link synergies kind of weird. But I don't think this card is actually that bad. Like a 0 for 4 go again 2 block is like pretty okay, especially in limited.
As a weird aside, it's always hard to tell if like one of these cards isn't Draconic because the art
Yeah.
it has so many.
Yeah.
They're all like very fiery and stuff. So when you said this one's not Draconic itself, I was almost like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah. Yeah, it's very hard to tell with a lot of these cards. All right, next up we have Grow Claws, which is if a Draconic attack was the last attack this Comet Chain, this gets +1. So this is a lot of time a 1 for 5 go again, which is very good stat line. The problem with it is again kind of similar to first tenant, first fire tenant strike fist. That's the name of the card. Yeah, but it's kind of a similar problem to that card where this is the Draconic itself, so it doesn't synergize with a lot of the other Draconic stuff. But I think this is like an okay limited card. Being a 1 for 5 go again is quite solid. The only downside of this card is it's 2 block, but it also comes in all the colors. I don't know. I think this card's like pretty okay.
Yeah, it seems like a solid pickup. Like it's kind of exactly the stat line you want to be looking for if you're playing limited.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't hate it at all. I think it's neat. All right, we got Grow Wings. If a Draconic attack was the last attack this combat chain, this gets go again. This is just a conditional 0 for 3 go again. It does block 3, however. What do you think about this?
Not the most impressive stat line. Again, 0 for 3 go again is kind of whatever, and there's no like on hit or like effect that it's giving you or anything crazy like that. But I think the card's like solid. Again, another downside of this card, not Draconic. So it synergizes with other Draconic cards, but it's not Draconic itself, which makes it kind of like a little bit of a weird starter. But pretty okay in like Syndra, for instance, because you always have access to a Draconic attack basically.
I find it interesting, like looking at these cards that are not Draconic. Like it seems like the payoff has to be like pretty big, like are the Dragon Blood, to warrant doing something like that with Draconic synergies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of similar. All right, next up we have Tag the Target. So this is an on-hit mark, 0 for 3 Gogan. Pretty okay in limited. I don't think this card's anything to write, or this card's like nothing in constructed, right? Because I think the stat line is just too bad, and it's not Draconic itself, so already kind of like discount against the card. But I think the card's like probably okay at limited. I guess the problem is like how are you hitting with this card, and I don't know how often you are probably hitting with this card.
I like the art.
The art's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the art. Cool. But yeah, nothing super crazy. All right, Trapper and Release though does have a little bit of a better stat line tag to target. This is a on hit mark, but it's 1 for 4 going, which is automatically I think a little bit better in terms of the curve of Syndra. And yeah, this card is a lot harder to block in sealed. But this is for the most part I think a limited card just because I think you have a lot more draconic attacks you want to run in constructed. But again, stat line is really good. Only downside is 2 block, but again, the on hit's probably pretty relevant.
Okay, we're gonna do a quick aside to do a legendary equipment. This is a blood spattered vest. It's an assassin ninja hybrid equipment chest. Whenever a dagger you control hits, you may gain a resource and put a stain counter on this. If there's 3 or more stain counters on it, destroy it. It's got blade break. It blocks 1. It seems like a really good on-demand spring tunic, where you get like 3 charges out of it. And if you think about how long it actually takes to get 3 uses of like tunic resource, like I think this seems really solid.
Yeah, this card seems really, really good. Just being able to get 3 tunic counters on demand is probably well worth like basically not being able to block with this card. But this card, like again, seems really, really strong. And then like with the interaction with like Mask Momentum is kind of interesting because like if you ever draw a card off Mask and then you don't have like the resources to pay, maybe you can like swing a dagger and then like gain a resource and then play out like another 1 cost or something. Makes it really interesting, and you can also use like flick knives to kind of control the on hits and like get the resources when you want. I think this card is really, really cool. It's probably going to see play in, I guess, most of the aggressive Cinder matchups, I imagine. Maybe even the non-aggressive ones. I think this card is just very, very solid.
As an aside, do you have like are is there a different chess piece you'd be considering from Syndra after this is spoiled or no?
I don't know if you even consider Tunic and Flame Scale at this point because like this card does, I think, a lot of what you want. I guess maybe you want Tunic in like some grindier matchups, but like I don't know how important the sideboard space is going to be for Syndra, where like Tunic is going to matter or like Flame Scale is going to matter. Like I feel like you're not really building around Flame Scale either because you're not like you want to run some amount of blues in Syndra, so like playing Flame Scale gets a little bit weird. Like you're not going to be wanting to activate it, I think. All right, next up, we're going to talk about the warrior cards, and we're going to start with a really good one. Hunt's End is a 0 for 4 react that gives target dagger +4. Very, very good stat line. Also at a 3 block. The only downside of this card is you have to control 3 or more fealty tokens, but this is a late game powerhouse, I think. Just giving a dagger, having a 0 for 4 react on a dagger is very, very solid, especially in Fang, where if you can also like use this card since it's draconic itself to swing, like it basically gives another +1 to the dagger. So this is almost like a 0 for 5 react that also gives go again to your dagger. This card's like insane. This card's like very, very good.
Do you think it's actually difficult to get 3 fealty tokens going with Fang or no?
I think it depends. Maybe it depends how like the builds pan out or whatever. But I've seen Fang get fealties like very, very easily, so I don't think it's going to be all that difficult to get this off. But like the downside is if you ever take like an off turn or whatever, then like you basically get the fealties reset, right? Which is kind of maybe like the risk of this card.
All right, Long Whisker Loyalty. It's a Draconic Warrior attack reaction. Blocks 3, costs nothing. For each Draconic Chain Link you control, you pick 1 of these. So it's a +2. You can attack with the target dagger an additional time, and then the next time a target dagger hits a hero, you mark them. It seems like it's just like a really cool like modal card that scales really well with like with the longer combat chains that you can do. What do you think about it?
So the way I've seen this card used best with Fang specifically is that you start with like a 0 for 4, right? Like so maybe you start with like that Oath card or like some draconic 0 for 4, right? Then you play like dagger, and then on after that dagger, then you play this card, and this card gets like all 3 modes. Like that's like the powerful part of this card. I've seen a lot of things that like only play this on like the first Obsidian Fire Vein, and like it doesn't do as much. So I don't. This card has a lot of high upside, but it also has a pretty low floor, is my opinion. All right, next we have Firm Loyalty. So this is kind of similar to the Ninja cycle, except it's a react. And it's a 0 for 2, but if you control 2 or more Draconic Chain Links, you create a fealty token. This card's like very, very good though, because it's base Draconic, which means that it also gives your Fire Veins +1 anyway. So it's kind of basically like a 0 for 3 that just creates a fealty for free. So very, very similar stat line to the kind of like Ninja attack where it also gave you a fealty. But yeah, this card I think seems really, really good in Fang.
All right, we've got Endear Devotion, which is just kind of an upscaled version of Affirm Loyalty. It's a attack reaction that gives a dagger attack +3. If you have 2 or more Draconic Chain Links, you make a fealty. Um, it's yeah, it's just 1 extra point of power for an additional cost um, from the Affirm Loyalty card. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this card also very, very good. I've seen both Affirm Loyalty and Endear Devotion played in a lot of the Fang decks I've been seeing in CC. So this card seems really, really solid. Again, the downside of this card is the 2 block, but it gives you on-demand fealty, which is really, really good. And yeah, I like this card a lot. Very aggressive, very good stat line. Just very, very solid card.
All right, we've got Fire and Brimstone, which is a legendary Draconic Warrior attack reaction. It costs 1 less to play for each Draconic Chain Link you control. Daggers you control get +1, and you can attack with each of them an additional time this turn. Just reading this seems like it's very strong. Especially if you use it on a dagger, then your dagger comes in for like 3, and then you can just do both of them. It also blocks 3, which is above rate for these Draconic Warrior attack reactions so far. What is your opinion on Fire and Brimstone?
So I think that this card is actually kind of overrated, maybe. The problem with this card is that so like your daggers and Fang don't have base go again, which makes it a little bit awkward. So you basically have to have 2 Draconic Chain Links, and then you also have to like swing with daggers additional. Like this card's a lot more awkward to play than it seems, but the effect is very powerful. I guess the question is like, are you able to realistically get all the components necessary to like play this card at full effect? I don't know if you can. All right, next we have Blistering Blade. So target dagger gets +2 if you control 2 or more Draconic Chain Links. It gets +3. This card's like okay in Fang. The problem with this card is that like if you're just swinging daggers in Fang and you're not playing any like attacks or anything, you have to play this on the second dagger. So it's almost like I forget what that warrior card is in Kasai, but it's like a second swing. So it's kind of like a Draconic second swing, but I guess it's a little bit more modal than that. I think this card's like okay, but it's more so like a card for like turning on daggers. I think more than anything.
All right, Brothers of Flame. Play this only if you control 2 or more Draconic Chain Links. Target dagger attack gets +4. It blocks 3 and it costs 1. So here's a question: like, do you think that getting Draconic Chain Links in Fang is as easy as it is in Syndra?
I don't think it is. So the problem with Fang is that you need to play something like in order to get the Draconic Chain Links, you need to play something at attack react speed or at instant speed to like turn your daggers on. Maybe a lot of the Fang decks that I've been playing against haven't been as refined, but it seems like there's a little bit of tension or like difficulty in turning on Obsidian Fire Veins and then also like swinging with them like repeatedly. So I think this card is baseline, like it's pretty okay. But the problem with this card is that you have to swing in with it on the second dagger, unless you're playing like a 0/4 attack and thing that has go again. So I think this card's okay. I guess I just need to see if the builds kind of coalesce around this card, which I'm not entirely sure they will.
Here's like a just as an aside question. It's kind of a rules thing. If you do a Draconic attack react on a non-Draconic card, does that make the chain link Draconic or no?
I do not believe it does.
Okay.
Dynastic Dedication. 2 mana, 2 block, costs less for each Draconic Chain Link. Target dagger gets +3. This card's also kind of awkward in Fang, just because you need to kind of play this on the second dagger to get like the full 0/3 value out of it. It's a little awkward. I don't know. Not super crazy about this card, but maybe it sees play at some point. I'm just not maybe seeing it.
How do you think it is in limited? Probably fine.
It's probably okay in limited. I think the problem with Fang in limited is that you maybe want stuff that can also work on the first swing as well. But yeah, this card seems like probably playable in limited.
All right, Imperial Intent, Draconic Warrior attack reaction, costs 1 less resource to play for each Draconic Chain Link you control. Target dagger attack gets +2. It costs 1. It blocks 2. To me, like, so interestingly enough, if you attack with a single dagger, you can just play this for free. So to me, it kind of seems a lot better than some of these other ones where it's like 2 or more chain links, just because it's harder to get that going.
Yeah, I think this one has a better stat line than Dynastic Dedication, just because like you only have to pay you don't have to pay any resources and you can use it on the first dagger swing, which makes it a lot better. So this is kind of like a 0/3 go again, but it like applies at react speed, which is I think probably pretty valuable. So I like this card a lot. I think it's pretty okay. All right, next up we have Scalding Iron. So 0 for X, attack react, where X is the number of Draconic Chain Links you control. It only applies to target dagger. This card is interesting, but the problem with Fang in particular is like how many Draconic attacks are you realistically able to like chain together before you play this card? Like, let's say you want to get like 0 for 3 value at minimum out of it. That means that you need to play like a Draconic attack and then swing with like an Obsidian Fire Vein, play another thing to give that Fire Vein go again. Then you play another dagger, and then you have to like play this on the dagger. So like that's what you kind of have to jump through to get the minimum of 3 value on this. Maybe I don't know. This card kind of feels like a trap to me.
Yeah, it seems like the kind of card that people like go into Magical Christmas Land and go like, oh yeah,
What if I get
this,
0 for
yeah,
5?
if this lines up and if this lines up and if I got the attack with the daggers again, and it's like realistically you're gonna get +2 out of this thing.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe or even +1. I guess also the daggers buff themselves, so
Yeah, like I don't know. I'm
like
not crazy. I'm not
yeah.
crazy about this card.
I don't know. Nothing to really write home about to me. Okay, so we have Searing Gaze. It's a Draconic Warrior attack react, cost 0, target dagger attack gets +2. If you have 2 or more Draconic Chain Links, it gets when this hits a hero, mark them. To me, so like there's a number of things that are weird about it. It's got the 2 or more Draconic Chain Links thing, so you have to do some sort of attack, give a dagger go again if that's the attack, and then do another dagger attack. And then it also has when this hits a hero, mark them. So like it's the on hit mark is kind of weird because it's like not guaranteed. What do you think?
I think this card's actually a lot better than some of the on hit Mark Cinder cards, for instance. Like, this card's kind of modal because you can always play this card for the +2. So you can always get like the 3 value off the Obsidian Fire Vein. And if you play it on the second dagger, you can basically get an on hit Mark trigger, which is at reaction speed, so your opponent might not be able to block it super effectively. I think this card's like kind of okay. Next we have Sisters of Fire. Play this only if you control 2 or more Draconic Chain Links. Target dagger is +3. I'm still not crazy about cards like these that only work on the second dagger. I think that you want to have like you can have some amount of these, like maybe like 3 or 4 in your sealed deck or draft deck or whatever. But if you're playing like 8 or 9 of these, then you're probably gonna run into a situation where you're not realistically able to like play out some of them. Like I think this effect is like strong, but the question is like how good is it in terms of consistency, which I'm not super convinced about.
All right, Sizzling Steel. It's a 1-cost Draconic Warrior attack reaction. Target dagger attack gets +3 if you have 2 or more Draconic Chain Links. Instant gets +4. To me, it seems okay because like the floor on one of your Draconic daggers is a like 1-cost +4. If it's like the second dagger, then it gets +5 because the dagger is inherent effect. I don't
Yeah.
think it's terrible at all.
I kind of don't mind this card, especially if you're like if you're using it for curve purposes. Like let's say you just have a blue, right, and you do dagger this and then another dagger, so you're getting what is this, like a two card 7?
Yeah, that's not too bad.
It's not too bad,
That's
especially
Wounded
for
Bolt,
limited. Yeah.
Final Sighting Spirit.
uh or I guess less than those, but it's still pretty good. Like the only downside 2 block, but again, I think this card's like kind of solid, especially when you're not turned online for like fealty and you don't have dagger reduction. I think it's really good. Next up we have Stabbing Pain. So target dagger attack gets +3 if you control 2 or more Draconic Chain Links. It gets when this hits hero, mark them. I kind of like cards like these just because like you can play it at kind of like a modal in a more modal way. So like you can use it to like turn on the first dagger, but you don't get the on hit mark. But if you play it on the second dagger, you do get the on hit mark. So I like this card a little bit more than the cards that you can only play on the second chain link. Cards like this, you can have a little bit more flexibility, and the mark does matter a lot for Fang, especially when you're generating fealty to try to reduce your daggers. So I think this card's quite solid.
Do you think it makes it into constructed thing, or is it like a limited staple more than anything?
I don't know enough about constructive Fang. Like I haven't really been following it. I've just kind of been looking at like decks opponents play against me. I might have seen this card, but again, a lot of the cards kind of look similar to me. So I'm not gonna lie. Like I have no idea if someone's played this against me, but it seems like kind of okay-ish.
All right, we've got another legendary. It's Kabuto of Imperial Authority. When this defends until end of turn, opponents can attack with weapons, Blade Break, Warrior Equipment, Head, and it blocks 2. I actually saw you put this to good use in an Olympia video that we did,
Yeah,
and
see like the Olympia.
stuffed the Fang's entire turn because they attacked with not a dagger first, and
Yeah.
we're like,
What do I do now?
pass. Well, what do you think about this card in general?
I think this is like a niche tech card. So if you ever see this like played against you, you basically just always want to start off on like a weapon attack, and then this card never gets any value, right? Like, so if you do like a car into this, like they basically will never get any value. So this only works against certain decks, decks like Fang, decks like just like warriors in general, like to attack with. It's like almost like an anti-warrior card, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
But I guess it also has pretty good effect against Syndra as well because you can like play it into Syndra and also stuff their turn if they go for like spreading flames or something. So I think this card's actually very good and maybe like makes the sideboard for a lot of warriors. Again, it does feel like almost like an anti-warrior card, which is kind of wild to me.
Notably, to all the people who were like, "Oh, well, this is a great anti-enigma piece," um,
If you're
because the wards are weapons. In case people weren't aware of this, Enigma can play around that so much better than a warrior can play around this.
yeah,
It's she can just go like, all right, well,
I'll just pass.
I'll send
I'll send your
Miraging
guy.
Metamorph. Who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, yeah, I don't think it actually does help in that matchup.
It's probably like worthwhile running into Enigma, but like you're probably if you're getting a ton of value out of this card, you're probably losing anyways. Like I don't know. Unless you run like I don't know, maybe some like new effects like Jagged Edge, but I don't know. Maybe this card seems very niche. I like cards like this. This is actually I think a very well designed card from LSS because I think it's very niche. It's got a very targeted effect. It's a very interesting effect because it makes your opponent's sequence different. Like this card is very well designed. I just don't know how strong it is. Like it's meta dependent, I think. All right, so we got Jagged Edge. So this is the warrior attack react. This card is actually kind of insane. This is a 1-for-3 attack reaction that blocks 3 in warrior, and also just gives you damage can't be prevented. So this card's like very strong. I initially thought this was like an action that you get +3 and damage can't be prevented to like a sword or to like a weapon or something. But this card's like insane. This card like actually probably does help in the Enigma match, like more so than Kabuto, I think. So this does give warriors, I think, a little bit of play into like illusionist, where like illusions kind of look like that little monster in the background, just like just demons. But yeah, anyways, I think this card's like pretty solid. Probably like a warrior staple sideboard piece, especially if enigmas are running around.
I mean, also just at its floor, it's just a solid buff
Yeah.
and a 3 block. But like even not like looking at Enigma, like if someone Oasis is your weapon, then it's like, well, guess what?
Guess what? Yeah.
Guess what?
Yeah, I think this card's like pretty good.
All right, we got Provoke. If you're attacking with a weapon this chain link, the defending hero reveals a card from their hand. If it's an action card, add it to this chain link as a defending card. Otherwise, they discard it. It's a warrior attack reaction. It's a more fair Siren's Call, and it's another Thoughtseize effect that LSS has printed. What
So,
do you think about Provoke
so I
first?
will slightly correct you. I don't think it's a Thoughtseize effect. It's technically a like rack effect or like a just a discard that you get to choose, which I think is a little bit more forgiving at least.
Okay,
So
that's fair.
so you don't your opponent doesn't get to choose the card out of your hand. You get to choose which card to give them. I think that this card is actually kind of fair. Like, I mean, I don't like cards like this, just conceptually of just like stripping cards out of your opponent's hand. But I think that this card is actually kind of okay. Like,
I think it's definitely like way more fair than something like Siren's Call.
yeah, like Siren's Call, you can play on any attack. Like you can play it on CNC, you can play it on like this is a lot more limited in scope. So I like the design direction. I'm still just not like a huge fan conceptually of cards like this, but I think this card's like fair.
Yeah, LSS. Hopefully less of this.
All right, next we have Sharpened Senses. So zero aura, go again. Your weapon attacks get +1 if their attack is twice their base. They get go again. So I think there might be like something here to this card. The problem with this card, like, so you need to basically give all your daggers and stuff. Like, you need to have like the additional attack with an additional time to get like the real value out of this because you want it to be like a 0-for-4 or something, right? I could see. I don't know what hero this belongs into. Maybe I'm not a warrior main, so that's why it's maybe difficult for me. But maybe this goes in like Kasai as just like a yellow block 3 or something, or like maybe set up for like a big blood on their hands turn or something. Like maybe I'm not seeing the vision of this card, or maybe played Bolton.
Bolton?
Maybe I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe it's like Lumina turn.
I guess, but like
Maybe.
I feel like there are better cards than this for that. Like I could see, I feel like Kasai is maybe what comes to mind immediately, but I'm not. I'm not a word rate. I don't know.
You can tell neither of us are huge warrior players.
Yeah.
All right, we got Diced, which is a great name. Target dagger attack gets +1. Your next dagger attack this turn gets +3. It's a 0-cost attack react that does that blocks for 2. Yeah, it seems like this is like a fine pickup in limited for Fang. It's just like cool. You get your first one, and then when you can swing with the second one, that also gets a buff. It's a lot like what is that other card?
Slice and dice.
Slice and dice.
Which I think is what the name is kind of playing on.
Oh, that's kind of fun.
So you're slice and dice.
No, there has to be one called Sliced.
Yeah, maybe there is one called Slice.
Oh, that'd be so sick.
That'd actually be kind of funny. But anyways, I think this card's like okay.
Yeah.
It comes in all colors. It's probably like decent. And yeah, like what 0 for 4 kind of stat line is pretty okay. The problem with it is not Draconic.
Well, I mean, it's also, if you think about it, in Fang, it's a 0. Oh, does that care about?
It cares
about
it only gives go again. The Obsidian Fire Veins only give go again if it's Draconic.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. So that makes sense.
All right, next we have Twist and Turn. So this is a 0 for 3 warrior action. Your next dagger gets +4, and when it hits, you may attack with it additional time. Wait, what? This card's like insane.
Yeah, that card seems really, really good. It's an action.
It's an action, but it's a 0 for 4 action with a non-hit. Like, wait, this card's actually kind of decent. I mean, and it also comes in.
First time you're reading this too.
This is the first time I read. Like, this card seems good to me.
Yeah, like I think this is. Wow, it blocks 3 too. It comes in all colors.
Maybe it's a little bit awkward thing because you have to like give the dagger go again and stuff, but like 0 for 4 is good.
You have plenty of ways to give daggers go again.
Yeah, if you run like maybe like 2 of these in your limited Fang deck, like this seems like a good effect to have. Honestly,
yeah. Like I don't know. Do you think this is constructive playable even?
I don't think it's constructive. Maybe it's not constructive play. Like I don't know. Maybe I feel like constructive Fang maybe has like a little bit more consistency that they want to focus on, but it seems like kind of okay and limited just as like a 0 for 4.
Agility Stance, which is actually only in yellow, which is kind of interesting. It's a 0-cost go again aura. At the start of your turn, destroy this, and your dagger attacks get go again this turn. In Fang, I think it's pretty interesting because it means that you don't need to have the Draconic reacts to swing the daggers. So if you have something like Diced, having Agility Stance pop at the beginning of your turn means that you can get like the full value out of that card without having to like try and work around like squeezing in a Draconic attack react that you may or may not really be able to play.
Yeah, this maybe also has like some interesting implications in maybe Kasai, for instance, or something where you can like, oh, it's only dagger attacks, maybe not. But like I think this card is kind of okay, just as like an interesting setup card. I think that the other stances might be a little bit better. Yeah, but not probably playable in Kasai, or I don't know. I don't think this card's like CC playable.
They could play it with Quicksilver Dagger if they really wanted to do that.
I guess so, but like I don't know.
If they really want to do
Yeah,
that.
that's kind of suspect. All right, next we have Flurry Stance. So 0 for 3 or 0 3 block go again at start your turn. Destroy it, and you can attack with each dagger you control initial time. Kind of an interesting like setup combo card. It's really good if you're like Fang and you're already online with like 3 fealty or whatever. But maybe kind of a little bit of a magical Christmas land card. I don't know how much value you're realistically able to extract from this, either in limited or in constructed. I don't know. It seems maybe like it's a little too cute to me, but maybe I haven't seen the ceiling of this card. Maybe this card is like actually like insanely busted or something.
Like the ceiling for this seems like it can get pretty high. It's more just like what's the floor of this, because the floor
is pretty bad.
The floor is like this doesn't matter, right? Like because that could totally happen.
Yeah, so I don't know, seems a little suspect to me,
especially because it's at the start of your turn, so you have to wait a whole turn. So if your opponent takes all of the cards out of your hands, then this is gonna just like
do nothing.
Yeah, do nothing. So you'll have gotten no value out of it.
All right, finally we have Power Stance. This is maybe the best of the cycle, at least to my untrained warrior eyes. So 0 for 3 stat line, or 0 3 block go against stat line, gives your daggers +1. So baseline, it's like a 0 for 2 kind of, but at blue. I think this card's like kind of okay.
Yeah, it seems completely fine. Like the blue block 3 carries it a lot.
Yeah,
It doesn't have as high of a ceiling as the other two probably do, but it's got a much more like realistic floor of it makes it so that you can,
get 2 damage or
yeah, you
something.
can get 2 damage, you can play your cards because you can pitch it and you can block for 3.
I think
Yeah,
it's okay.
like it seems like completely fine. All right, we got cut deep. It's a warrior action. It comes in all colors. Your next dagger attack this turn gets +4. Go again. It's a 3 block. Uh, I don't really have a ton to analyze about this card. This is just a buff for your dagger.
It seems pretty solid, or yeah, it seems pretty similar to Twist and Turn. I guess it just doesn't give you that additional on hit. Is it that basically the same exact card?
Here, let's look real quick.
Yeah, it's like the same exact card, right? I'm not missing something.
This is your attack.
Oh, is this that common? Maybe that's
Yeah, this is it rare. That's
okay.
why.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's like basically similar stat line as the other one. Seems solid. Maybe like you run like 3 or 4 of this kind of effect in your Fang deck, and then you just kind of rely on getting your Draconic value out of other like React cards. I think this card's like very good.
Yeah, like I don't think there's anything wrong with this card at all.
All right, similar card to the last one. Similar stat line, except it costs 1 this time, but it gets the on hit of when this hits a hero mark them. So this is a little bit more face up than like the attack react type mark stuff. So your opponents maybe are a little bit more likely to try to go for like a block on this. But I think the card again shares like a very good stat line with some of the other stuff. Like I think that you probably are not upset about running this card, but like 1 for 4 go again on hit mark is like probably pretty decent, right?
Yeah, and I mean like the good news is it's a warrior card, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's face up with like if this hits you, you're getting marked, but you do have attack reacts to push it over the top if your opponent does go for a block.
Yeah.
So it's not just like a naked here's a buff, can you block this coming in for 5, like some classes would be. All right, we got Knife Through Butter. It's a 1 cost warrior action. Your next dagger attack this turn gets +4. Whenever you attack a marked hero this turn, the attack gets go again. It's also a 3 block and it has go again. At first glance, I think this looks pretty good if you can mark your opponent as Fang. Just because it doesn't apply like for the next time you attack. It's just if you are attacking a marked hero this turn, that attack is getting go again, and it also doesn't specify weapon attack.
So I think that this card's a little bit worse than like Hunted Killer, for instance, like last card we kind of looked at, just because like how often are you realistically like you don't really get to control like when you mark a hero as often. I feel like if especially when you're Fang, like let's say you like hit them and you take the mark off on like previous turn and then you get your fealty, then they're not marked for the next turn. You play this card and it's just a 1 for 4. I don't know. I think this card maybe is like to me. All right, point of engagement. 0 for +3 on your next dagger attack until end of turn. Your attacks get +1 when attacking a marked hero. Again, the question here is like how often are you able to consistently get a mark on your opponent, and like at its floor, this card's like fine. Like getting 0 for 3 go again is pretty good on a 3 block. And then you get the added benefit of if you're attacking a marked hero gets a little bit better. I think this card's okay. I think it's more of a I don't know. Maybe it's more of a ceiling card than a floor card or something like that. But yeah, the problem with this card is you don't really always get to control when you're marking your opponent or taking the mark off, so it makes it a little bit more suspect to me.
All right, Sworn Vengeance, which is a 0 cost warrior action with go again. Your next dagger attack, sorry, this turn gets +3, and when this hits, hero mark them. It seems like it's very similar to what is it, Hunter Killer? Yeah, but it costs 1 less, and does 1 less damage. It to me has like the same like, yeah, it's face up, but you can still push it over the top with reacts type thing. Like it seems like a perfectly fine card to like run in your Fang deck.
I think the stat line on this card is really good actually. So you can get a 0 for 3, and then you get the on hit. So this turns Fang's daggers into 0 for 4 baseline, and then if you like do a Draconic react, it maybe comes in for like +7 or something. So the breakpoints I think on this card are really, really good, and it being a 0 cost maybe fits the Fang curve pretty well. I've been seeing this a lot actually in CC, so this might be actually kind of like a powerhouse. All right, next up we have Dragon Scalar Flight Path. We kind of skipped over this a little bit earlier with Syndra, but this is also technically Fang playable, but I think it's more so probably for I don't know. It's hard to evaluate this card.
It's for Dromai.
It's for Dromai. Yeah, so you basically pay so it gets discounted like similar to kind of like a lot of other Draconic attacks. So you're not always going to be paying like the 3 to just give Go Again. That would be terrible. But you basically give Go Again to something that's like late on your Draconic Chain Link to kind of give like either an ally or weapon attack Go Again. The ally part of this is a little bit concerning. That maybe
Yeah, that to me is like
maybe segues into the Dromai Armory deck at some point.
Please don't ever make just like don't ever reprint her.
That's already in the printers. I feel like
it'd be so funny if they were just like, no, never again,
never again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this card's like pretty okay. So the question is whether or not you're gonna run this for snaps in Syndra. I think that this card's probably good. Like you're getting the 1 battle warren as opposed to snaps, which you're getting like 0 block out of. But if you give like let's say you get this for 0 and you give a Draconic attack Go Again, and then you also get to swing with like a dagger or something afterwards. Like it's pretty good value. Also specifying Draconic attack is maybe a little bit better than specifying 0 or 1 cost, depending on how Syndra builds pan out. So
yeah, Syndra has like fealties to make like many things Draconic attacks. Draconic cool. Like off the top of my head, this reminds me like the most of Black Tech Whispers, but the Go Again isn't nearly as conditional as
it's not on hit Go. I don't think it's quite Black Tech just because you're not getting the on hit Go Again, but like getting unconditional Go Again. It's just the problem with this card is that you can't do it like early on in the chain link, which maybe makes it a little bit awkward. But I think this card's like pretty good.
Yeah, seems really solid piece of leg equipment. Yeah, so we're actually going to skip over these next
couple of quick.
Yeah, these next Draconic
they're limited equipment. They're good against Arachne.
Yeah,
it's probably fine.
They like mention Arachnes by name. Yeah. This is the only one that doesn't, but
it's got a pretty big downside.
It's got a huge downside.
Potentially huge downside. So maybe you can play this in like Syndra, which maybe has more Draconic. So because like the Warrior stuff, it seems like you maybe want to run a mix of like Warrior and Draconic stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. This card's interesting, but maybe it's probably good and limited if you can build your deck around it. But...
yeah. Okay. Oath of Loyalty. It's a 0 cost Draconic action attack. Attack action. Sorry. It's a majestic. It does 4 damage. It blocks for 3. This may only be played if it's the first action of your turn. When this is played until end of turn, you may only play cards that are Draconic. Go Again. What do you think about this? I think it's fairly restrictive.
So the funny part about this card is it's restrictive with itself, which is also funny. So like let's say you draw multiples of Oath of Loyalty, you can only play 1 Oath of Loyalty, right? So this card is a lot more awkward than it seems. And it
seems pretty awkward.
Okay, so like 0 for 4 Go Again is like one of the best style lands in Fab, right? Mm-hmm. Especially as a Draconic card. Like this card is like everything you want.
But it's 3, which is crazy for a card like this.
The problem with this card is how bad is that effect of only being able to play it on your first turn, and then the only cards afterwards you can play are Draconic. I think it might be a little bit worse than maybe a lot of people think, but maybe Fang or Syndra builds kind of coalesce on just all Draconic stuff, and maybe this is actually like free and like very easy to activate. But I don't know. There's even the problem is there's anti-synergy with this card like within itself. Like if you're running 3 copies of this card in your deck, so the brick potential starts with the card itself, and then even if you have all Draconic cards in your deck, like you still have that floor brick, and then if you're not running non-Draconic cards, you also have the brick potential of those as well. So it's definitely a card that introduces a lot of deck building tension. I guess the question is whether or not it's worth it. All right, next we have Loyalty Beyond the Grave. So this is 0 for 3 D-React, and then while it's in your graveyard at the start of your turn, you banish 2 cards named this card, and then if you do, draw a card. So the interesting thing about this card is that you only need 2 copies in your graveyard to get the draw effect, but you're running like a below rate D-React, which is like a 0 for 3 D-React, and it's not going to give you like Draconic Chain Link synergy or anything crazy like that, but it does give you an extra card. So it's kind of like an interesting like quest mechanic where if you get 2 of these in your graveyard, you can You can do some cool stuff, but the question is the payoff worth it? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like how badly do you want an extra card draw for running like 2 below rate cards? You have to run 3 below rate cards, I guess, if you really want this. And then the third below rate card you can't actually use because like it's only coming in red, right?
Right.
So I don't know.
What's interesting to me is like I feel like the decks that would want the extra card like this the most aren't running a ton of D-Reacts.
Yeah,
Like
so
like
it's
Fi isn't running a million D-Reacts.
I don't know. This card I feel like is a trap to me.
All right, so we have Compounding Anger. It's a rare. It costs 3 and comes in for 5 with a 3 block on it, but it costs 1 less to play for each Draconic Chainlink you control. It seems like a solid limited in like Chain Ender, or even like a thing that you could potentially give go again to. Like just at the end of a very long combat chain, you play this for free. Here's 5 damage.
Yeah, I think that this even maybe has like CC implications, just as like a 0 for 5 chain ender. Like kind of like similar stats to Lava Burst, but it's I guess it's basically the same thing as Lava Burst, right? It's kind of like your extra copy of Lava Burst. Card's very interesting. The floor obviously is like a three attack, three cost 5 attack, which is bad, but you're almost never probably hitting that floor unless something goes terribly wrong. So I don't know. This card seems okay, pretty solid. Okay,
Yeah.
definitely like playable. All right, next we have Hunt to the Ends of Wraith. So this is a 0 for 4 if you are attacking a marked hero, and then when this attacks Arachne, it just gives Arachne mark. So this is an interesting, maybe limited card. This feels more like a limited card than anything to me. But maybe if you have like a ton of mark synergy in your deck, like maybe it's Fang or something, maybe this card actually is like very, very playable as a 0 for 4 go again. My hesitation with this card is that like I don't know. It's how often are you realistically able to mark your opponent is the question, and I don't know how often that is.
Yeah, it seems like it's pretty narrow. Like anytime something mentions like a specific hero or a specific class, like calls it out by name, like the light cards and the shadow cards and Monarch or whatever,
Yeah.
like it becomes so much more narrow and more difficult to play in CC. So I think it's probably pretty okay and limited. But I don't think you run it in CC unless your local meta is like very strange.
Yeah, very weird.
Yeah. All right, we got March of Loyalty, which is a 0 for 4 3 block draconic attack action. If you've created a fealty token this turn, this gets go again. Um, this seems like it's pretty okay, provided that you have the ability to make fealties like pretty quickly. What do you think?
Um, this card's interesting to me. I just honestly saw this card at the start of us recording it, and I'm like, oh, can I actually like brew something with that? I think it maybe gets a little bit better in like Fang, for instance, because I feel like Fang has a lot more mark and like fealty synergy than Syndra does, at least in my
Mhm.
kind of first take of the deck. So this card seems kind of a little bit more like a Fang card than a Syndra card, but I think the stat line's really good. The problem is, I guess, like how often are you making a fealty? And if it's often, this card is very, very good. If it's not often, then this card is a more lackluster, I think. All right, next we have Bubble to Surface. 2 cost Draconic instant that costs less for Draconic Chainlink. Reveal cards from the top of your deck until you reveal a red card, banish it, you may play this turn shuffle. This card, I don't know. This card seems suspect to me.
Yeah, I like yeah, it's like it's so not a sure thing. It's such a gamble. Like and it's an instant.
Okay, wait. There maybe is some implications to this in Fang, for instance.
Okay.
So, like, let's say you have like a Fang deck that's just a ton of like 0 for 4s or something,
All
like
right.
kind of like Martial Loyalty or whatever. And like, let's say that all your Draconic, or like all your red cards in your deck are like that, or what? I don't know. I'm spitballing here. Maybe there is like a deck that you can build that like makes use of this card because what you can do with this in Fang specifically is you can use the Draconic instant part of this to turn on your Obsidian Fire Veins and give Gogan, and then you can play like another attack or something after that. But this feels like a magical Christmas land. Maybe there's some broken build, but probably not.
Yeah, you describing that to me,
Yeah,
it was like, okay, buddy.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I don't think this card's actually that good.
it's probably okay and limited.
Maybe I don't know. I don't even,
It's probably okay.
I don't even think this card's good in limited.
Who knows?
Yeah.
It's probably okay. All right, Drop of Dragon Blood. It's a Draconic instant. It costs 2. It's legendary, so you can only have one of them in your deck. It costs 1 less to play for each Draconic chain link you control. Gain a resource, draw a card. So if you have 2 Draconic chain links, which is pretty easy in Syndra, for example.
You get +1 resource.
Yeah, this is a card that essentially it's like shitty Kindle. It just pitches for itself because you're playing it out and then you're drawing. So like yeah, it seems pretty good. It makes sense as why you can only have one of these in a constructed deck though.
Yeah, I kind of like this card. I've been trying it out in Syndra initially, and the extra resource matters a lot in Syndra because you have a lot of like, at least the build I'm playing runs a lot of like 1 cost. So this card's kind of cool. It does have like a little bit of, it gives your deck a little bit of inconsistency, I think. So maybe it doesn't end up seeing like a ton of play, but I think this card's like actually kind of reasonable. All right, next we have the Uprising, but better. We have Rake Over the Coals, which is 0, gives all your Draconic attacks +1, and it's Draconic instant. So this card is actually, I think, really, really good. Maybe even so. I don't. So the awkward part of this card, right, is that so it's an anthem effect, right, which is really, really good. The problem is, I guess, like how wide are you able to go to get to the point where you're able to like cash in like 4 value on this? Because I think that's basically what you're looking for in terms of returns. So like let's say you're Fang and you have like dagger or something that, and then you get +1 of the dagger, you swing with like another fire vein. So you're getting like 2 of it. Like I think this card actually has like a lot of interesting implications, and it's like a strictly better Uprising, I think, to me. Uprising, which is a card that was printed in Uprising.
I'll put a picture on this.
Yeah, you can put a picture on the screen. But yeah, I think this card's better than that card, and that card is kind of interesting in a lot of these decks. Or like I've tried it out in Cinder and it was okay. So it's a better version of that, which is kind of cool.
I think you can pretty easily get this to be a 0 for 4 in Syndra because the daggers baseline there's 1 and 2 right there. And
I guess the question is like how necessary is this card in Syndra? I don't know. Maybe.
Hey everyone, it's Blaze Headlong. You know what this does. It's a Draconic All-Star. It's reprinted here. We're not gonna go super deep into it. You know what Blaze Headlong does.
Good card.
Great card.
Great card.
Amazing card.
Alright, next we have for the Drakai, when it's text marked hero, create a fealty token. It's pretty good and limited, I guess, if you're creating like a bunch of marks and you're able to do that. But if you're not hitting the mark, this is like a 0 for Draconic with no go again, which to me is a little suspect. The stat line's okay, but again, you generally want, I think, go again a lot of your Draconic cards, and this doesn't have go again, which makes it a little bit more awkward. And then also whether, like, if you're attacking a marked hero, gets like the when you're attacking a marked hero clause is, I think, very inconsistent to me.
Well, let's also talk about For the Emperor, which is that same style, same text +1/+1, and For the Realm, which is same text +1/+1. If you like,
I think this is the worst of them just because the stat line's kind of rough. But I think the 0 for 4 and the 1 for 5 are quite playable. I guess the question is like how often are you able to mark? And I don't know. It's basically like it's kind of like if you're already ahead and you're marking your opponent, then this card gets a lot of value. But if you're not marking your opponent, this card gives you no value.
All right, we got Hunt the Hunter. It's a 1 for 5 3-block Draconic attack action. When this attacks a hero, if you've played another red card this turn, mark them. I think this is so it doesn't have go again, but I do think it's probably pretty good because I think it's a lot easier to play another red card to get the on attack mark than it is to do to hit them or do any of this other like weird conditional stuff.
Yeah, this is an attack trigger, which is really good.
Yeah.
Not an on hit, which makes it a little bit more interesting, especially in like CC, because I think that on hits are generally worse than on attack trigger. I mean, they are strictly worse. I also like the name because it's Hunter Hunter. But
I don't like the name.
You don't like the name. But yeah,
sucks.
yeah. But anyways, but yeah, this card's like I think pretty solid. I've actually been trying to see if I can like fit this in my Syndra CC deck. I don't know if I've found the room yet, but the card's kind of cool.
It's interesting. It's kind of like a classic Draconic card of like it cares about reds, whereas a lot of these new ones of like
just care about like fealty or
cares about chain links. Yeah. Like this is like
I like this card a lot. It's
I like
cool.
this. Feels good.
All right, next we have Smokeout. So Smokeout is a 0 for 3 D react that when it defends a red card, mark the attacking hero. This card's really cool. I think that this card's not good into Fang, for instance, just because like Obsidian Fire Veins are not red. So like if you were trying to use this to like block the dagger, it's not great. But if you're playing like against Syndra or against like Arachne, they probably have like a decent amount of red cards that they're actually playing. So I think this gets a lot better. And getting like a free mark on a D-React, like I think you're basically getting 0 for 4 value here, kind of ish, if you count mark as like one value, which maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But card seems pretty good.
Yeah, I don't think it's like a CC card at all, do you?
I've seen this played against me in CC, but I don't know if it was good. It was okay.
I mean, the whole set's not out, so who knows?
Yeah, who knows? But probably maybe not a CC card, maybe more of a
A little too narrow.
yeah.
Okay, we've got Blessing of Vincere Kai. It's a zero cost Draconic Aura. It blocks 2. At the start of your turn, destroy this. Your next attack this turn is Draconic and gets +3. Um, I don't like cards like this generally. Like in limited, I think these are fine, right? Where it's like you can block, play this out, and then like set up for a larger turn on your next turn. But in CC, I think that there's many other things you can be doing
Yeah.
in your Draconic Heroes that are a lot faster and better than this.
Yeah, the problem is this card is slow. Like the effect is obviously quite good. Like turning a card Draconic is basically like you're getting like a Brand with Cinderclaw almost kind of effect, but it's like delayed.
Yeah, not having go again's a really big deal.
Yeah, not having Gogan's a pretty big deal. So like if you have multiples in this card, clunks up. I don't know. This card's like seems very clunky, but the effect is strong, and maybe if you're going like first or something, the card's pretty good. But otherwise, yeah.
It's a lot like Blessing a Key from Part the Misfill.
Yeah, like a decent card, but like not crazy.
Art sick though.
Art's pretty
Yeah,
hard.
art's
Art goes
awesome.
hard.
Feel free to screenshot.
All right, next we have Pledge Fealty. This is another card I've seen played against me in CC, but I'm not incredibly impressed by this card. Like, so how much is this is I guess an interesting question. How much is a fealty worth? I don't think it's worth. I don't think it's worth 3 value. I think that a fealty is maybe worth like 1 or 2 value if you want to be very generous. But like, this card is just 0 cost to make a fealty, and then the fealty doesn't actually translate to damage a lot of the time. So it's like how much is a fealty worth? I think it's worth about 2 if I'm kind of estimate like 2 max, I think. And this is like a 0 for 2 Draconic instant. I don't know. I'm not impressed by this card.
Well, if you were cheating, for instance, and played in Florian, if fealties are worth 2 and he's online, it's a 0 for 4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, think about it that way.
Okay, wait. There is actually maybe some synergy here with like Fang, for instance. Like maybe you just need a critical mass of cards to get fealty online as soon as possible, and maybe that's how you discount your daggers. I don't know.
Oh, does it also buff the dagger?
It buffs the. I don't
yeah.
know. Maybe this is like
It
a
could be
Fang.
fine.
I don't know. Maybe it's better than I think it is, but like I'm not crazy with this card.
I don't think it's super amazing. Okay, we got Proclaim Vengeance. This was spoiled a while ago. Mark target opposing hero. If that hero is Arachne, gain a resource. It's an instant. I think this is primarily a limited card.
This feels like a limited. This feels like a limited card, and it also feels like a bad limited card.
Like, I really. Okay.
I had to play this in like when I was gold fishing Talishar with Syndra, and this card sucked. This card was terrible.
Yeah.
I hated this card.
I just don't like cards where it's like if it's like really like Slay, right?
Right.
Like where it's like, oh, this super narrow thing, like you do that, and it's like this is that.
I think it's a little bit more modal than that, but yeah,
it's a little bit more because at least it's
you always get the mark regardless.
But the Arachne thing is just like,
I don't know. This card's whatever. Maybe it's got mark synergy or whatever, but not crazy about
it's
it.
very flavorful. I'll give it that.
Yeah, it's pretty flavorful. All right, next you got Tooth of the Dragon. So this is almost like a react kind of. So your next Draconic attack this turn gets +3. This kind of has cool Fang implications because you can like use this on like Obsidian Fire Vein to give it go again. So you're getting like 0 for 4 value, and then your next Obsidian Fire Vein gets +3. I think this card's like good. I think it's pretty good. The only downside of this card is it doesn't block, but you don't need all your cards to block. Like this card's fine.
Yeah, like I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with this card. Do you think it like makes it into constructed Fang, or are there just better cards when you have the opportunity to like curate them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't followed a ton of like Fang deck building. But I have not seen this card played against me. I don't know. Maybe it's better than it looks, but
we'll have to actually like give Fang a real shot.
yeah, well, I'll try him out at some point. But yeah, card seems okay. Maybe not CC, but definitely okay in sealed or limited or whatever. All right, so that's going to wrap up our initial set review of the Draconic, Ninja, and Warrior cards in the set. We haven't talked about the hybrids yet, but we're gonna pair that with the next part of the video, which is gonna go through like the assassin cards, and
And
then
the generics as
yeah,
well.
we'll cover the generic stuff as well in the next video. We've also like kind of skipped over a lot of the equipment stuff, like the more common equipment. Like I don't know, it's not super interesting to me. Yeah, next video we're gonna talk about the assassin cards, the hybrids, and then the generic cards. So yeah, feel free to stay tuned to that. And yeah, that'll be our thoughts on the Draconic and Warrior and Ninja stuff.
See you next time.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Bye.